President Donald Trump was scheduled to speak at a distant Air Force base in Kansas for a Veterans Day event honoring aviators who served across generations. Among the special invitees was Captain Lorraine Hayes, now 72, a legendary figure in military aviation. She had flown combat missions in 3 wars, mentored generations of young pilots, and held stories that could still a room. Now she lived quietly in Wichita, sharing a home with her daughter's family. When the envelope with the presidential seal arrived, it was her granddaughter Ava who handed it to her with care. "Grandma, it's from the White House." Lorraine opened it slowly, her fingers trembling midway. "They've invited me to the ceremony. I never imagined I'd be called upon like this." Her daughter Kayla glanced up from the kitchen sink. "Are you going?" Lorraine looked toward a weathered box in the corner of the room. "Yes," she said softly. "There's something I've kept for 49 years. He deserves to know." "He? You mean him?" Kayla asked, puzzled. Lorraine gave a solemn nod. "The president. It's not about politics. It's about something long overdue." She walked into her study and pulled down the old wooden box, revealing a sealed envelope, yellowed with age, untouched but never forgotten. Bold, neat handwriting on the front read, "Open this when you're alone." That night she sat at her desk holding the envelope, her reflection gazing back at her through the window, older, wiser, carrying decades of memories. She laid the envelope beside a small, worn photo, a younger Lorraine in uniform standing, next to a boy about 9 or 10, with bright blonde hair and a familiar smile. The boy in the photo was Donald J. Trump. The photo dated back to 1975, taken during a summer aviation program for elite military families. Lorraine had been an instructor at the time. Trump wasn't part of the camp. He had wandered onto the airfield during a visit with his father. Their encounter had lasted under 20 minutes but left a lasting impression on her. "I gave him something," Lorraine whispered, "and he gave me something too, even if he doesn't remember." Inside that envelope was a handwritten letter she had written the day after their meeting, a letter she never sent. It held a truth, a promise, and a question that lingered with her for decades. She didn't need to read it again. Every word was etched in her memory. She placed it carefully in her purse. Tomorrow it would finally reach his hands. The next morning, Lorraine arrived at the airbase in a modest sedan. Security was tight. Secret Service agents inspected every guest. A crisp breeze swept across the fields, with flags flapping proudly in the wind. Wearing her decorated Air Force blazer, Lorraine walked confidently through security. "You're on the list, ma'am," an officer confirmed. "Right this way." The hangar was filled with veterans, officers, families, and friends. Banners lined the walls honoring years of service. Lorraine took a seat close to the front, the envelope resting quietly in her lap. A hush fell as the presidential motorcade pulled up. Cameras clicked as Trump stepped out, shaking hands and waving. He appeared energetic, focused, and genuinely honored to attend. Their eyes met momentarily. He nodded politely, unaware of who she was, but Lorraine remembered and believed that he would too when the time was right. Trump took the stage. "Today," he began, "we honor those who risked everything to protect our skies and keep our nation free. Veterans are the heart of America's strength." Lorraine watched him intently. This wasn't about politics for her. She had come seeking truth. She scanned the crowd. Some applauded. Others watched silently. Her heart pounded. Was it the right moment? Should she speak up? Not yet. She waited. His speech felt deeply personal. He shared stories about his late uncle, a veteran and scientist, and recalled childhood visits to airfields. "I remember once sneaking onto an airbase as a kid," he said, smiling. "I saw a jet pilot who let me sit inside a cockpit. I've never forgotten that day." Lorraine's eyes welled with tears. He did remember. Her grip tightened around the envelope. After the ceremony, veterans were invited to meet the president. Lorraine waited patiently in line, the envelope now tucked into her blazer pocket. When it was her turn, an aide announced her. "Captain Lorraine Hayes, retired Air Force." Trump extended his hand. "Captain Hayes, thank you for your service." Lorraine shook it firmly. "Mr. President, we met a long time ago. You were a young boy then." Trump tilted his head. "At that aviation camp in New Jersey, you let me sit in a fighter jet." Recognition flickered across his face. "You were the pilot," he said softly. She nodded. "Yes, and you gave me something." "That day, something I never forgot." She pulled the envelope from her pocket. "Please open this when you're alone. It's important." Trump accepted it, intrigued. "I will." That night, aboard Air Force One, Trump sat quietly in his private cabin. He pulled the envelope from his jacket and looked at the handwriting. Again. "Open this when you're alone." He hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a letter and the faded photo of him and Lorraine beside a jet. "Dear Donald," it read, "you were just a child that day, but your words stayed with me. You said you wanted to be brave like your brother, strong like your father, and kind like your mother. But what you gave me was a promise. You said, 'Someday I'll build a place where pilots like you are never forgotten.' You were 9. That promise lit a fire in me. I flew with more purpose. I lived with more courage. I waited for that place. I never expected you to become president, but maybe, just maybe, this is the time to keep that promise. With respect, Lorraine Hayes." Trump sat still, his eyes filled with tears. He folded the letter and stared out the window at the clouds below. He picked up the photo again. He looked so small beside her, but her eyes were the same, full of strength and hope. He pressed the intercom. "Get me General Hawthorne." "Sir, the General's home for the weekend," the aide responded. "Wake him." That night a plan began, not for politics, but to honor a promise. Back in Wichita, Lorraine told no one about the letter. Not Kayla, not Ava. She simply smiled. Her part was done. Weeks passed. Nothing came. She believed the moment had been enough, but she still checked the mailbox each morning, just in case. One morning, Ava ran in, waving a thick envelope bearing the presidential seal. "Grandma, something arrived!" With trembling hands, Lorraine opened it. Inside was a handwritten note from Trump. "Dear Captain Hayes, your letter reached me at a time I needed it most. I've spoken from many podiums, but your words reminded me what courage truly means. Your impact is not forgotten, nor is your promise. I'd like to invite you to Washington, D.C. for something meaningful. Sincerely, Donald J. Trump." Below it was a second page, a blueprint. 2 weeks later, reporters gathered at the White House Rose Garden. Trump stood beside General Hawthorne and a petite woman in a blue Air Force blazer, Lorraine. "Today," Trump announced, "we unveil plans for a national monument. Not a statue or wall, but something living and lasting." He turned toward Lorraine. "This is Captain Lorraine Hayes. She flew missions history books don't cover. She represents every pilot who risked everything for our freedom." He turned back. "We are building the National Aviators Hall of Honor, a place where their stories will soar, not gather dust." News spread rapidly. Trump honors veteran pilot with national tribute blared across headlines. Talk shows debated. Veterans wept. Letters flooded Lorraine's home. You gave us a voice. You reminded us we mattered. You changed everything. Even Ava noticed. Grandma, you made the president cry. Lorraine just smiled. It was never about tears. It was about a promise made beneath a jet wing by a little boy. Construction began swiftly. Lorraine helped design the hall. She envisioned a circular layout symbolizing a pilot's endless duty. She asked for a room of personal artifacts, dog tags, journals, broken radios, not just medals. Trump wanted a wing named after her. She declined. It's not about me. Instead, she requested it be named for Captain Roland Strickland, a fellow pilot who didn't return. I fly for those who can't. In the Oval Office, Trump received a package from Lorraine. Inside was a child's drawing of a jet, 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, and a folded paper airplane. A note read, "You gave this to me in 1975. Said it was your first jet. Thought you'd want it back." Trump placed it gently on his desk. No cameras, no press, just a paper plane and a promise. But not all memories were bright. Lorraine received a message from a former squadron mate, Tom Reynolds. I saw you on TV, but I remember '89. She froze. That mission, the one no one was supposed to speak of. She called him. Tom, I remember. We weren't heroes that day. You saved lives, Lorraine. We made hard choices, he said. That's war. She hung up, sitting in silence. Even heroes carry shadows. Lorraine later visited the Oval Office again, alone. Trump told her, "What you did changed how I see service." She nodded. "And how you respond now will define your legacy." They talked for an hour, not of politics or war, but of leadership, regret, forgiveness. As she left, she said, "You made a promise at 9 years old. You kept it. Don't stop now." On groundbreaking day, jets soared overhead. Veterans stood in full uniform. Trump invited Lorraine to speak. "I don't speak for myself," she began. "I speak for those whose names are etched in stone, whose stories never made it to the books." She looked out at the crowd. "You don't need wings to be a pilot. You need courage, and sometimes a child with a dream." Applause thundered. Veterans volunteered. Businesses donated. The press dubbed it America's Hangar. Inside, displays filled the space. Photos, journals, cockpit logs. One corner remained empty by Lorraine's request. "This is for the untold stories. Leave it blank. Let people feel them." Trump visited weekly. "No red tape," he told aides. "This one's personal." One autumn day, Lorraine took one final flight in a restored F-86 Sabre jet. She dipped her wings over the hall. Trump watched from below. "She's still got it," he whispered. That night, she wrote, "Flew once more. For them, for him, for me. Wings don't retire. They just fly quieter." Opening day arrived. Thousands came. Trump stood beside her. They cut the ribbon together. Visitors wandered through the hall. Veterans stood in silence. Children watched in awe. In the final room, a glass case held one small folded paper airplane. Beside it, a plaque. A promise kept. Lorraine passed away peacefully a year later. Trump attended the funeral standing beside Kayla and Ava. In his eulogy, he said, "She taught me leadership begins with listening. That words matter, and that promises, even the small ones, can outlive us all." The hall remains open. Visitors still come. And etched in stone at the entrance are Lorraine's words. "You don't need a plane to be a pilot. You need courage. and beside them a child's sketch of a jet and a tiny